Here's your wrestling news for March 24th, 2023. And we're kicking off today with Naomi, who hasn't been seen on WWE programming since she and Mercedes Moné walked out of an episode of Raw in May of last year. While Moné has since gone on to join New Japan, Naomi's status with WWE has remained up in the air until this week. On Instagram, the former SmackDown Women's Champion promoted an upcoming appearance at WrestleCon, where she'll be using her real name of Trinity Fatu, and when asked by a fan if she is still with WWE, Naomi simply said, "No, friend." Fans had been speculating on Naomi's status with WWE for months, and at times, it was believed that both she and Moné would be back with the company under Triple H's watch. It was back in January that Fightful reported that Naomi's contract had been close to expiring at the time of the walkout, and WWE clearly felt that an agreement for her to return couldn't be reached. As for what's next with Naomi, that's difficult to say, as outside of a few conventions, the former superstar has steered clear of pro wrestling related events, but has remained close with Moné. Since the walkout, the two women have walked the runway for the New York Fashion Week and have attended the premieres of multiple Marvel projects. And what would you like for Naomi to do next now that she's gone from WWE? Over to AEW now, and as the Women's World Champion, Jamie Hayter is a regular on the company's programming, which made her absence from this week's Dynamite very surprising. Typically, a wrestler being away is a sign of an injury, something that caused many top stars to miss TV in 2022, but thankfully, that isn't the problem this time. As Dave Meltzer explained on Wrestling Observer Radio, Hayter was neither on Dynamite nor in the United States, as she had to travel back to her native England to get her work visa renewed. Meltzer added that while everything has been sorted for the Women's World Champion now, it's unclear when she'll be back, and there's a chance that she may miss next week's tapings as well. This isn't an issue exclusive to AEW, as foreign-born wrestlers have to take a few weeks off every couple of years to sort their visas out, and it hopefully won't be too much longer before we see the Brit back on TV. One name who also missed Dynamite this week, though unsurprisingly, is CM Punk, who continues to be out with both a suspension and an injury. After All Out, many assumed Punk's time with AEW is done, and it wasn't long after that reports came out stating Punk wanted a buyout of his contract in order to leave the promotion. Now it appears that Punk has had a change of heart, as while speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer revealed that the former AEW champion now wants to return. Punk recently shared a post on social media about a time when Steve Kern, aka Skinner, had a backstage fight with Coco Beware, but their issues were quashed when Jerry Lawler brought them in for a meeting. Many have taken this as a sign that Punk is ready to move past what happened last September and is eager to get back once he is fully recovered from his torn triceps injury. While CM Punk may want to return, and he does have some allies on the roster, many don't want him back, but ultimately it'll be Tony Khan's decision on what's next for CM Punk. But what would you do if you were in Khan's shoes? And what do you make of Punk's change of heart? Sound off in the comments. It's no secret that Punk makes his views on things abundantly clear, and this week, the two-time former AEW World Champion took aim at Dave Meltzer. As arguably the biggest name in wrestling journalism, Meltzer has been following the Punk situation very closely, and this week had some things to say about the Chicago-made wrestler. In a Wrestling Observer forum, Meltzer spoke about the Punk vs. Jon Moxley title unification match last August and said that originally Punk agreed to the match, but later changed his mind. His report added that AEW received a legal letter from Punk saying he wouldn't lose to Moxley, and it was only when Tony Khan put his foot down that Punk went ahead with the plan. That's at least what Meltzer claims happened, but on social media, Punk fired back with his side of the story. He explained, "Sigh. I wasn't cleared to wrestle yet. When the plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view, I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky III idea. I'd explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie, and I thought the idea sucked, but if the boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I never experienced someone refusing to lose to me, I just laughed. I asked Tony if this was what he wanted, he said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could be a squash match, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important, Dave Meltzer is a liar, Chris Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change, but I'll never put a company above my health ever again. There's a lot to unpack here, but two of the biggest takeaways are that Punk claimed that it was Moxley who refused to lose to him, not the other way around, and more importantly, that AEW were willing to put an injured wrestler in the ring despite knowing he was not cleared. As for the comment about Chris Jericho, it's well known that Jericho hasn't been a fan of Punk in AEW, branding him a cancer after All Out, and is reportedly a part of a team of wrestlers fighting to block his return to AEW. If Punk does want to come back to AEW, accusing the promotion of putting an injured man in the ring is a funny way to go about things, and we'll just have to wait and see what response, if any, comes from AEW after these inflammatory comments. Last year, Stone Cold Steve Austin had his first match in 19 years and exceeded expectations in his WrestleMania main event with Kevin Owens. While WWE have been hoping for Austin to wrestle again, nothing has been confirmed for this year's WrestleMania just yet, and the Rattlesnake is fine with never lacing up his boots again. Sitting down with NBC Los Angeles, Austin spoke about his career in the ring and said he does not miss being a wrestler. While Austin doesn't miss wrestling, there are parts of the industry he does miss, including traveling the world with WWE and bonding with the men and women on the roster. Speaking about his match with Owens, Austin said it came together as a fluke, but reiterated that, "My days in the ring are done." LA Knight has been pitched for Austin for WrestleMania, but it's unclear if that match is happening or not, and even if it doesn't, the Texas Rattlesnake isn't losing sleep at the idea of never wrestling again. Whether Austin competes at WrestleMania 39 remains to be seen, but one name no longer expected for the showcase of the Immortals is Bray Wyatt. Over the past few weeks, the former Universal Champion has been completely absent from programming to the point where WWE has stopped bringing him up on TV. With Wyatt seemingly out, the question is what will become of Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, and it turns out WWE has some ideas in mind. WrestleVotes reports that WWE will have a match and an opponent for the Almighty at WrestleMania, and interestingly, LA Knight has been discussed for a match with Lashley as well as with Austin. The report did add that just because Knight's name was thrown around does not mean a match with Lashley has been planned. But with WrestleMania 39 now just 8 days away, a decision will have to be made soon. Given that Lashley is one of the biggest names on Raw, it makes sense for him to compete at WrestleMania. And whoever it may be, don't expect his match to be against Bray Wyatt. Speaking of WrestleMania, a match between Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio hasn't been announced for the show just yet, but many believe that this is just a matter of time. It's been rumored for months that the incredibly personal feud between the father and son will culminate in a match in LA, and one person who's excited is Vickie Guerrero. Vickie's WWE on-screen debut came as part of the feud between Rey and Eddie Guerrero over Dominik in 2005. And while speaking on the Whole Story podcast, Vickie gave the one change she'd make to the storyline. "My only reaction is that I wish I was part of it. I just think, man, they're having so much fun. Dominik and Rhea have always texted me, and we talked back and forth, and they've always had my support." Many expect that Dominik's antics during his father's Hall of Fame ceremony will force Rey to accept the match, and what have you made to the feud between the father and son? Sound off in the comments. Earlier this month, Sarray exited NXT after what was an admittedly underwhelming run with the Gold brand, but it's one that the Japanese wrestler doesn't regret. Speaking to Jin Saito this week, Sarray spoke about her NXT run, saying that she was able to experience a lot of things that she wouldn't have been able to anywhere else. Sarray added that it was an asset for her to work in the best organization in the world, despite her limited time on TV. At 26 years old, Sarray didn't want to spend some of the best years of her career sat on the sidelines, and while she'll now go on to bigger things outside of WWE, she has no regrets over her time as an NXT superstar. And we're ending today with Nick Aldis, who left the NWA last year in unique circumstances after detailing the very real issues he has had with NWA president Billy Corgan. At the time of his exit, many assumed Aldis would be coming to WWE in time for the Royal Rumble, and while that hasn't happened, Wade Barrett would love to see it. Speaking to the Metro, Barrett called himself a big fan of Aldis and said that his fellow Brit's demeanor in the NWA was very similar to the late great Harley Race. Barrett added that Aldis has a lot he can contribute if he comes to WWE and said he's on board with the former Magnus joining, but that's ultimately a decision only Triple H and Aldis can make.